hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's get into it, y'all.
Party wants nothing to do with people like Nick Fuentes, doesn't want to do with anti-Semites. I'll continue to be critical of Republicans who flirt with this sort of stuff. I wish that the Democratic Party were as critical of sitting Congress members who not only flirt with this sort of stuff, but overtly traffic in this sort of stuff. You know, I mean, I'll ask you about Zohran Mamdani. Zohran Mamdani, literally in the campaign. In the campaign, he was asked on Fox News about Hamas, and he refused to denounce it as a terrorist group.
They are a terrorist group, and they should have been denounced. I was there, as you know, a few weeks after.
Only 7 nations recognize Hamas as a terrorist group.
Yes. October 7th, met with Bibi. Not a big fan of Bibi. This is where we have fundamental disagreements. Fine, quite the contrary, in fact.
But staying on domestic politics for a second.
Yeah.
It seems to have become a sort of de rigueur requirement for Democrats who are running for office to now suggest, for example, Scott Wiener just did this. He's running for Congress, that Israel committed a genocide in Gaza. That is, forget about anti-Semitism and discussions of it, because I think that those have become really loose and people don't have a consistent definition of anti-Semitism. Let's just talk about what's true.
That's true. I think it's true about the definition. I mean, we, as you know, have been struggling with that in California as it relates to a lot of laws and legislation.
Of course, anti-Semitism is a fundamentally different cat than, for example, racism. It's basically a conspiracy theory about Jewish power in the world. And
it makes me sick to my stomach. And I say that clearly. And but not just, of course. I mean, we've tried to lead in terms of our response.
He tried to make sure he can get some of that AIPAC money.
And we've called out and called balls and strikes in terms of the outrageous things that have happened.
So I would, you know, in my own framework of anti-Semitism, I think that saying overtly false things about the Jewish state is a form of anti-Semitism. But I don't think that is really important as much as it is it true or not? So Democrats have now been dragged into this conversation, some drag, some run with, you know, flags waving into the conversation
about of genocide.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, look,
Israel did not commit a genocide in Gaza. There is no standard by which Israel committed a genocide in Gaza, just on a factual level.
Just as a legal and factual level.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is your opinion of this?
My opinion is I understand the tendency for people to make that, to assert that.
Why?
On the basis of the images and the proportionality as it relates
doesn't mean genocide.
No. And by the way, I agree with you.
And international and proportionality doesn't mean that if you kill my child.
So when you have a little over 2 million people in one area, and you done killed about over 100,000 of their people, I mean, what else do you call it? Does it have to be that they have basically 10% of their population? Hopefully it doesn't get to that, but 10% of their population not existing anymore. Do you need them all dead in order to recognize it as a genocide when you're literally dropping bombs on hospitals, schools, and on civilians? Literally, those tent cities that you've seen around in Gaza, and they were still dropping bombs on them. This is crazy. And their excuse is, oh, they were hiding. They were hiding out in the amongst the civilians. Well, how come the toll of however many people are in a Hamas is not more than the actual civilians who have died? Like, that's what's crazy to me. You would think that the number of Hamas that they were killing should be higher than the number of civilians. And it's not. It's the adverse. So with that being said, I don't know what else you would call it. It's definitely wrong. Like, if anything, and Gavin want to say, oh, well, it's because people are looking at images. Okay, besides looking at the images, we know exactly what it is. And it's all like, do we have to look up the definition of what a genocide is in order to call it? And it's so crazy because there are people who recognize it as a genocide. This is not a thing that people are just saying online. Like, it's been recognized by the UN. Like, yes, this is a genocide. It says genocide is a deliberate destruction in a whole or in part of a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group involving acts like killing, causing serious harm, imposing life conditions to destroy them, preventing births, or forcibly transferring children as defined by the UN Convention of Genocide. bombing hospitals, women and children being killed. They had to remember it was like a famine. It was a large amount of famine. They were eating horse feed or something like that. Some animal feed. I think it was just animal feed, but they're eating animal feed. Remember, because they were stopping, talking about Israel was stopping first aid and supplies getting into Gaza. Remember that? They're probably still doing that. What am I talking about? They're still doing that. So with that being said, I don't know what else you would call it. If you're stopping humanitarian aid into getting into a nation and you're making those people and you're letting those people starve and die, people being amputated without any anesthesia, or I don't know what else you call it. Like, that's the crazy part. What name do you call it if you don't call it a genocide?
Right. And I then kill 7 criminals that I've been disproportionate.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but I think but I understand that tendency on the basis of trying to reconcile the proportionate nature of how the war was ultimately conducted.
I have a question. Why do you feel the need to create a permission structure for that sort of stuff? I mean, meaning it's not true. Yeah. Why not just say it's not true?
Yeah, look, I don't know the definition, or I don't know the legal threshold. That's not my opinion, so I don't share that opinion as it relates to genocide. I do not agree with that notion.
But you do understand that if you accuse Israel of committing a genocide, that now puts Israel in the position of it should be a pariah state, because states that commit genocide should be pariah states. Yeah. So granting legitimacy to that position inherently.
I'm not granting legitimacy. I'm just saying
Notice how Ben, and you'll see this if you watch the whole interview, how he has to like pressure him for an answer, because Gavin Newsom wants to talk about everything under the sun except the actual question that he's being asked.
The devastation in Gaza, at the human level, you've got 4 kids.
Of course, it's terrible.
No, but I think it's also important to absorb that a little bit more. Just as it was sick, and we were clear in our condemnation, these people like me, as it relates to what Hamas did in that act of barbarism and terrorism.
Yeah, but there's a difference between deliberate terrorism and wartime collateral damage, of course. And if we refuse to acknowowledge that reality, then we end up equating
collateral damage. I have stronger opinions. It wasn't just collateral.
Really, you think that Israel is targeting civilians?
I think some of the double tapping issues. I have a lot of issues with how Bibi ultimately conducted the war. I personally do, and I have a lot of issues that are also painted on the basis of the conversation I had when a few weeks later, after October 7th, the way he talked about the Palestinians. I kept talking about Hamas. He kept talking about the Palestinians. I kept coming back to Hamas, and then ultimately how the war was.
Yes, because he wants all the Palestinians gone. They don't recognize them as, oh, this is Hamas and this is Palestinians, because they're literally killing them all.
Conducted. Not saying it was a genocide. I'm not. But I have issues.
What is the thing that he said that you particularly?
There was a dehumanization. I didn't like the way he talked about the Palestinian people. I just didn't.
What is the specific?
They can't govern them. I didn't. I don't want to get into the details.
The reason I'm asking is because when you suggest that he is conflating Hamas and the Palestinians,
he wasn't.
And of course, it does lead to the conclusion.
They were different. It wasn't. No. It was. I'm just saying the way he ultimately conducted it. I look back at that conversation. I reflect on that conversation. It doesn't surprise me, and I did not think it was proportionate.
Okay,
and I thought it was overwhelming, and the devastation and destruction breaks my heart.
Okay, so you're president of the United States. Somebody invades from Mexico. They take several thousand American citizens.
I get it. And by the way,
they hold them all the way until the end of the war. Until the end of the war, there are hostages being held.
Don't get me wrong on any of this. I'm with you in terms of the ultimate accountability and bringing the hostages home. I like the clarity and conviction as it relates to getting all the hostages dead and alive home, and all of that. I'm not.
Let's cut the shit. So there were reports that Bibi knew all about the attack that Hamas planned on October 7th. But they let it happen. You have to look at it this way. And it's so crazy that he's not even mentioning this. So everything that they do in Gaza is heavily monitored. Like literally, in order for people in Gaza to go into Israel for like medical care and treatment and stuff like that, they have to have a special passport or some kind of badge or something like that that allows them to go. And sometimes they're still denied those permissions to be able to enter into Israel. So you're telling me that they literally got some parachutes and some big ass blow fans, and they were able to fly over into that festival, and no one knew that was going to happen. They were all surprised and thrown off. It's not like they threw it was like jet planes and like bombs. No, they literally flew on parachutes and with big ass wind fans. Let's move on from this. So everyone has been looking at Gavin Newsom like, oh, look, he's a fighter. He's a fighter. Well, it depends. Is he fighting for us, or is he fighting for himself, or fighting for a position to become the new president? Who is he fighting for? Because I think the president should fight for the people and not for themselves. I mean, look at Donald Trump. He's definitely fighting for himself. Do we want another Trump? I mean, I guess having a Democratic Trump is better than having a Republican Trump, but is it really? Y'all, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate y'all for being here, but we out. Deuces, everybody.